Molly Carmel, and this is the podcast I always wish existed. A bite sized, on the ground spiritual note that can shift your thinking and your outlook on life to help make us all a little bit more awake, alive, and ascending. So, I went to my spiritual retreat in Lourdes expecting a lot of things. And just for those of you not in the know, Lourdes, France is one of the most sacred pilgrimage sites in the Catholic world. And in fact, like that church has confirmed more than 70 miracles attributed to the healing waters there. So, like, the healing waters in Lourdes is like the thing. It's the thing. People with illnesses come from across the world, like desperately ill, lots of them carrying things that medicine has not been able to fix. And as a result, for whatever it's worth, the energy of Lourdes is unlike anything I've ever felt. And just in case you're wondering who I am as a person, I smuggled home legally so much of their sacred water. I mean, they have spigots, you can take it. I mean, they sell containers for it. But I do think the amount I brought home for everyone I love is really bordering on abnormal. But here we are. Here we are. And so one of the most powerful things that you can do at Lourdes is participate in what they call the bathing ritual, which is you put on this gauze and people submerge you in the sacred water. And, you know, since there have been all those miracles there, like, and the testimonies are real and documented, you know, like people are so excited to go do it, right? And so obviously I was so excited to go do it. I was so excited to go get dunked. It was going to be transcendent. I had like the whole thing planned out in my head. And then I found out a little bit more about like the actual logistics of it. And you have to go very, very early and wait in a long line. Now listen, I'm a 5:30 a.m. riser. I don't mind. I can really practice patience in the right situations. But here's what else I found out. If a pilgrimage group arrives, so if like a group of very religious people who are there to be together in their church group and be in Lourdes, if they arrive, they get to go ahead of you. But this is the one that really got me, Ascenders. If there are very, very sick people, they go ahead of you. And standing there, right, considering if I should go do this bathing ritual and starting to understand the actual order of things, something really shifted in me. Because I was like in Lourdes and I'm seeing all these people in wheelchairs and all these people kind of like walking around on the last legs of something serious. Frankly, just people needing this bathing ritual in a way I just don't. Like, there's no possible way I need this. And I heard something very quiet and very clear inside of myself, which was just like, Molly, you're not sick. This is not yours. And obviously not in a punishing way and not in a you don't deserve to get the dunk kind of way. Quite the opposite. Just like a very clean, honest recognition. Like there is a line of need here and you don't even make the list, right? You don't even make the list. I'm healthy. There are all these faucets everywhere available to me where anyone can stand and drink the water and put it on their face and their hands and receive whatever it is that Lourdes has to give. And I just wasn't someone who needed a sacred bath, right? I could easily just go to the faucet. And so I went to the faucets and I stood there. Then I put the water on my face. I drank it. I put it all over my teeth because I have a lot of teeth problems. And honestly, what I felt standing at the faucets was not a consolation prize. It was exactly right. It was proportionate, right? It was proportionate. And it was honestly such a like a spiritually honest moment for me in that trip. Which brings me to my pocket sage today. I love this pocket sage so much. And if you don't know him, you really should. Richard Rohr, from his book, Everything Belongs. He's what's such a wonderful spiritual teacher. And he really spent his life trying to help people understand what real spiritual maturity looks like. And he's always come back to this idea that the ego wants more and bigger and wants that starring role, and that the deepest spiritual growth almost always moves in the opposite direction. So, Everything Belongs is such a good book. Highly, highly recommend. And here's the passage. All great spirituality teaches about letting go of what you don't need and who you are not. Then, when you can get little enough and naked enough and poor enough, you'll find that the little place where you really are is ironically more than enough and is all that you need. And that place, you will have nothing to prove to anybody and nothing to protect. Let me read that again for those of you in the back. It's such a good one. All great spirituality teaches about letting go of what you don't need and who you are not. Then, when you can get little enough and naked enough and poor enough, you'll find that the little place where you really are is ironically more than enough and is all that you need. At that place, you will have nothing to prove to anybody and nothing to protect. And I think that's where I was, right? The little place where you really are is ironically more than enough. And so the word of the day today is proportionate. Proportionate. Knowing your actual size in a larger order of things. So not being small or diminished or less than, just like proportionate is right sized, right? Right sized. The right amount of space for who you actually are and what you actually need in a particular moment. And the ego actually never wants to be proportionate. It wants more, 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 more. It wants the full experience, the best seat, the most sacred version of whatever's available. And, listen, like, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with wanting fully, but there is something that opens up when you can look at a situation honestly and ask, like, what is actually mine here? What is the proportionate thing? And then you can let that be enough. And honestly, standing at that faucet instead of going into that bathing ritual was really the proportionate move. And it really was one of the most sacred things I ever did was let go of this idea and let those who need it have it. So here's what I want us to be thinking about today. There's a kind of spiritual maturity that looks like subtraction, that looks like less, stepping back, getting smaller instead of bigger. And this is not a popular opinion, right? Our culture has almost no language for this because everything around us is pushing us in the opposite direction, right? We're told to take up more space, to ask for more, to make sure we're getting everything that's available to us. And listen, there are absolutely places in life where that is the right thing. There are absolutely moments where you have been making yourself too small for too long, and the work is to expand and claim your truth and step forward. I mean, I've done a bunch of episodes about it, and frankly, I work on it myself. And there's a completely other kind of work that's so necessary. The work of right sizing, of looking honestly at a situation and asking, what is actually mine here? Not what can I get or like what's technically available to me. What is actually mine? What belongs to me in this moment, proportionate to who I am and what I actually need? What I actually need. And listen, in Lourdes, that bathing ritual was not mine. Of course, I could have stood in that line, but I wasn't sick and I wasn't in crisis. I was a healthy woman on a spiritual retreat who wanted a transcendent experience. And there were people all around me carrying things I can't even imagine, ascenders. The proportionate thing was to step back, just to give someone else my space in line. And really, what I discovered letting go of the idea of taking that back was like a much truer experience. It was so far from a lesser one. And frankly, an experience that is part of my core lesson. I'm enough exactly as I am. I don't need more, right? I'm not a sick person trying to get well. And Richard Rohr points at something that I really want you to spend a minute with today. When you can get little enough, it says, you will find that the little place where you really are is ironically more than enough. Ironically, right? He uses that word deliberately because it's the opposite of what the ego expects. The ego expects that getting smaller will feel like losing. It expects that the faucet will feel like a consolation prize, that I would spend the rest of the trip just being like, "Oh man, I can't believe I didn't get into the bath." Or, "Gosh, you know what? Maybe on the last day, I'll skip retreat and I'll go get in the bath," right? None of that happened. What happened was I went to the faucet. It was a perfectly beautiful experience. I felt close to my creator, right? And in a place that was more holy than anything I could have engineered for myself. You know, the little place where I really was turned out to be completely more than enough. And I was really glad I hadn't taken up a space that was for somebody who really needed it, right? And I just want to sit with something for a moment before I close, right? Of course, there's a version of wanting the bathing ritual that's not greedy and not ego, it's just human. And of course, you want the most sacred thing available. And of course, you want the full experience. None of those things are character flaws. Let me make that clear. And there's a difference between wanting fully and pushing past what's actually yours. And it's a big problem we have in our world today, isn't it? You know, that faucet was mine and the bathing ritual belonged to someone who needed it in a way I simply did not. And recognizing that difference and acting on it was really, I don't know, I found it to be, my soul really smiled when I did it. So I knew it was right, right? So proportionate isn't less, it's honest. And honest, as it turns out, is where the sacred really lives. So, my reflective question for you today: what are you pushing for that might not be yours right now? And what might be waiting if you just stepped back? And I am right here with you, Ascenders, getting little enough to find my place that's ironically more than enough because we rise together. Until next time.